Today, I'm going to add one amazing superstar using college football teams. The goal is to construct a roster to compete for a Super Bowl in just one season, but we have to fill out the entire roster by using one player from every NFL team. This means we cannot add more than one player from the same NFL team to our roster, which will make this even more challenging. I added over 40 popular colors to this wheel spin, and the first one's going to be landing on the Florida Gators. A few really solid options here in Kyle Pitts, CJ Gardner-Johnson, Marcus May, and Dameon Pierce. I think Kyle Pitts is the best option here because he's the highest rated overall, and he's going to be the first player added to our team. Now that we added our first player to the roster, we can no longer add another player from the Falcons and the Florida Gators. Spinning the wheel again, and this time it's going to land on BYU. And obviously the choice has to be Zach Wilson, right? I'm just joking. We can definitely go with the highest rated player in Fred Warner. We got Puka Nacua or Jamal Williams. This was an easy choice, bringing in Fred Warner as our first defensive player and knocking out our second NFL team so far. And if we're unable to fill a certain position on the team, we will have to sign a 70 or below rated free agent player to fill that spot, which will ultimately hurt our chances of winning a Super Bowl. Hoping this next wheel spin lands on a top end school so we can add a superstar to the team, but it looks like it's gonna land on Pittsburgh, and I have just the player in mind. Bringing in 99 overall Aaron Donald at right end. And moving right into the next wheel spin, it lands on the Washington Huskies. And to be honest, my Washington knowledge is very limited. So I decided to go ahead and Google it, and the options were Kyle Gordon, Will Disley, Vita Vea, or Budda Baker. But I decided to bring in the highest rated player in Budda Baker, and he'll be a stud at safety for us. And it kept on getting better. The next wheel landed on Maryland, and they produced some really great stars. But this was a no-brainer, bringing in Stephon Diggs as wide receiver number 1. The next wheel spin lands on South Carolina, and the two options were Stephon Gilmore or Jadeveon Clowney. Let's go ahead and bring in Stephon Gilmore from the Dallas Cowboys, and he will be cornerback number 1 on our team. The next wheel spin ends up landing on Cincinnati, and this one has me stumped. We can go with either one of the Kelsey brothers, or we can go with a shutdown corner in Sauce Gardner. But since we already have a tight end and a cornerback on the roster, let's bring in Jason Kelsey from the Eagles to show up an important piece on our offensive line. And I really hope I made the right decision here. And quickly spinning the wheel again, this time it lands on Temple. So we decided to go with Brandon McManus of the Jacksonville Jaguars. With 8 NFL teams already knocked off, our offense has some elite talent, while the defense is absolutely stacked with a couple future Hall of Famers. We still haven't landed on a top-end school like Alabama or Georgia, but this time the wheel lands on Notre Dame, a college football program with plenty of amazing offensive linemen like Zach Martin, Quentin Nelson, and Ronnie Staley. But unfortunately, we can't pick Zach Martin since we already went with Stephon Gilmore. So let's bring in Quentin Nelson from the Indianapolis Colts, who will slot in right next to Jason Kelsey. We're going to spin the wheel twice, and the two schools we have to pick from are California and Texas A&M. Lots of great talent from both programs, so I decided to go with Keenan Allen from California, and then I went with Myles Garrett from Texas A&M, knocking out the Chargers and the Browns with these two picks. The next school that we have to pick a player from is going to be Florida State. Plenty of big names who played their college ball there at Florida State, like Derwin James, Josh Sweat, and Dalvin Cook, but you know I have to go with the highest rated player in Jalen Ramsey. He will slot in at cornerback number 1, moving Stephon Gilmore to cornerback number 2. And after beefing up an already stacked defense, the next wheel spin lands on Clemson. They do have 2 quarterbacks we can go with, Trevor Lawrence or Deshaun Watson, but I think I'm going to hold off for just now and go with Dexter Lawrence from the New York Giants. And he's going to be playing between Myles Garrett and Aaron Donald. We're going to move this along a bit. The wheel lands on the University of Iowa, followed by UNC. And from Iowa, there was a lot of choices at tight end. But since we already have Pitts, let's bring in Tristan Wirfs as our new left tackle. As for UNC, Javonte Williams was the highest rated player that we could go with, and he'll be slotting in at running back number 1 for now. And the next wheel spin lands on Louisville. Finally, I have a QB option in Lamar Jackson, and it's too good to pass up. I really don't want to be stuck without a quarterback, so let's bring in Lamar Jackson as quarterback number 1. We have officially knocked off half the NFL team so far, and I am quite pleased with how the team is looking. A really solid quarterback in Lamar Jackson with plenty of elite weapons and a really good offensive line to protect them. And as for the defense, I do not think any team will be able to run the ball on us with Donald and Garrett coming off the edge and an elite secondary. We still have lots of work to do, but let's see what this next wheel spin lands on, and it looks like it's going to be Alabama, one of the best football programs over the years, and you know I have plenty of options to pick from. And I'm not sure if this is the smartest decision I can go with, but I decided to take Minkah Fitzpatrick because we really need a free safety. I know I could have gone with Derrick Henry or one of the many elite wide receivers that played there, but I'm happy making our defense even better. Today's video is sponsored by SeatGeek. With over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. There are more than 70,000 events every single day on SeatGeek, including sports, concerts, festivals, and more. I am really excited to watch my Cowboys play the Bills in December, and you know I'll be using SeatGeek to purchase my ticket. With the baseball postseason right around the corner and football season underway, you don't want to miss out. Plus, artists like Drake and 21 Savage are on tour right now. They put all the tickets across the web in one place so you know you're getting a good deal. But when you're on the app, make sure you're looking for the green dots. Green means good, and red means bad. Every ticket is backed by their buyer guaranteed, and SeatGeek is the only site that lets you return your tickets ahead of the event with swap. And you know I came through for you guys. Use code UPANDAV to get $20 off your tickets at SeatGeek. That's $20 off your first purchase when you use promo code UPANDAV. And make sure you click the link in the description to download the app. Moving on to a couple more wheel spins, we can now choose a player from Wake Forest and then Michigan. Kenneth Walker III was the easy choice here, and he'll be running back number 1, but now we have a tough choice to make for Michigan. Would have loved to bring in Aiden Hutchinson, but since our defensive line is already solid, I decided to bring in Rashawn Gary from the Green Bay Packers, and he'll slot in next to Fred Warner at outside linebacker. This might be one of the most well-rounded teams I've made so far, and the next wheel spin lands on Georgia Tech, and the only player we can go with is Shaq Mason from the Texans. And unfortunately, the next wheel spin lands on Mizzou, or otherwise known as Missouri, and I really thought there was not going to be many players to pick from, but after Googling it, Nick Bolton from the Kansas City Chiefs played there. And now he will be joining Fred Warner at middle linebacker. With just 11 teams remaining, we still have a few positions we need to fill throughout our team. And the next wheel spin lands on Penn State. But unfortunately, we cannot use their 2 best players in college history since we already used their team. So let's bring in Speedy Jahan Dotson at wide receiver number 3. And after spinning the wheel 2 more times, it lands on Oregon and then USC. And these were easy choices, bringing in Christian Gonzalez from the Patriots as quarterback number 3 and Amon-Ra St. Brown from the Detroit Lions, securing our slot receiver. Those were some great depth pieces, and now we have to pick someone from Virginia Tech. The only options we have left is Christian Darrisaw from the Vikings or Khalil Herbert from the Bears, but we could really use a right tackle. Moving along, the next 2 wheel spins land on UCLA and Ole Miss. We are really struggling to add some elite players with just a handful of teams to work with, but I found Mercedes Lewis, who played at UCLA, and Mike Hilton from Ole Miss, knocking out the Bears and the Bengals. We are still missing a few positions on our roster, and I really don't want to add anyone from free agency. And it looks like the next wheel spin is going to be landing on a top-end school in Tennessee. Not too many options left here since we use a lot of the NFL teams already, but we can go with Alvin Kamara, who will share some reps with Kenneth Walker. And with just 4 teams left, we're going to spin this wheel twice, and the first one lands on Auburn, allowing us to bring in Derek Brown from the Panthers. And the second wheel spin lands on the powerhouse in Georgia. But unfortunately, the only player that we could go with was Mecole Hardman of the New York Jets, and he'll be our kick return specialist. The last 2 teams are the Raiders and the Titans, and the wheel spin lands on Mississippi State and Texas Tech. So I went ahead and brought in Jeffrey Simmons from the Titans and Tyree Wilson from the Raiders. And just like that, our offense is looking amazing with Lamar leading the way, and the defense looks super overpowered. I did, however, bring in a few free agents to fill some of the backup positions and a punter for the team. Let's just hope that doesn't hurt our chances at a Super Bowl. The first game of the season started off great with an absolute beauty of a pass to Kyle Pitts right before finding Amon-Ra St. Brown in the end zone to take the early lead. Mahomes was able to keep the game close, but Lamar and the offense was just too much to handle. They ended up winning the opening game of the season 35-17, with Lamar Jackson throwing for 333 yards and 3 touchdowns. And they carried that momentum from week 1, winning their next 6 games and are currently undefeated. Lamar leads the NFL with 2,100 passing yards and 20 touchdowns, while Stephon Diggs leads all receivers with 815 yards and 4 touchdowns. So far, the team is first in offense and 4th in defense, but can they remain undefeated? And this team does not lose, finishing the season with a 17-0 record and a first-round bye heading into the playoffs. Lamar Jackson finished first in the NFL with 4,900 passing yards, 46 touchdowns, and just 4 interceptions, which was good enough for the best offense in the NFL. Both Myles Garrett and Aaron Donald led the NFL in sacks this season, which was good enough for the best defense. They now take on the 9-8 Cowboys, who have Micah Parsons as their top threat. Lamar Jackson faced a lot of pressure early on from the Cowboys pass rush, but he still managed to work down the field and connected with Stephon Diggs in the end zone to open the scoring. The defense came up huge in the red zone as Rashawn Gary sacks Dak and Myles Garrett pounces on it. The game quickly got out of hand thanks to the high-powered offense, and they are now moving on to the NFC Championship game. Next up is the Philadelphia Eagles, who have a high-powered offense as well. Faced with an early 4th down, Kenneth Walker is easily able to pick up the 1st down, but unfortunately the Eagles defense stood tall, only giving up a field goal. Just before halftime, Lamar Jackson gets his team into scoring position, but fails to convert on a 4th and 2 in the red zone. The Eagles end up taking the lead, and Lamar's offense is really struggling. Luckily, they were able to tie the game with yet another field goal, but now Jalen Hurts and the Eagles offense can take the lead. And as they move down the field, the defense gets a much needed stop. Accuracy has been an issue all game, but he was able to find Diggs over the middle, and a few plays later connects with him once again. And he does it, finding Amon-Ra St. Brown in the end zone to take the lead with very little time to go. And the defense was able to hold up, and they are now moving on to the Super Bowl. Lamar Jackson ends up winning NFL MVP, and Myles Garrett wins Defensive Player of the Year. We now take on the Tennessee Titans in the Super Bowl. And the defense had no answer for Derrick Henry early on as he easily rushes in for the first score of the game. Lamar Jackson came right back with a great pass to Mercedes Lewis, but then he overthrew Alvin Kamara in the end zone. He didn't make up for it though, finding Keenan Allen, who walks into the end zone to tie the game. And just before halftime, Lamar Jackson throws an interception right into the hands of Kevin Byard. In the second half, Lamar takes a huge sack, but he was still able to find Keenan Allen in the end zone to take the lead. The game ended up getting away from the Titans as Kenneth Walker breaks a tackle and scores his first touchdown of the game. The team of colleges end up defeating the Titans in the Super Bowl and remained undefeated. And if you enjoyed this video, YouTube thinks you'll love this one. I would definitely go check that one out.